I found out that my husband had been living a double life, and the worst part was, he took my money with him. Hi everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I always thought I knew my husband. I knew how he liked his coffee strong black, with just a splash of milk. I knew he hummed old jazz songs in the shower. I knew the exact way his face softened when he looked at me across the dinner table, that small smile playing at the corner of his lips. After 15 years of marriage, I believed we had built something unshakable. A quiet, steady love. The kind that doesn't make headlines but weathers storms. Our life together was ordinary in the most beautiful way. We lived in a 2-bedroom house on Maple Street, with blue shutters that needed repainting and a garden I tended every Sunday. David worked in finance, or so he told me. Investment consulting, he'd say, waving his hand dismissively whenever I asked for details. Boring stuff, sweetheart. Numbers and spreadsheets. You'd fall asleep if I tried to explain it. I worked part-time at the local library, a job I loved for its gentle rhythm and the smell of old books. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had savings, or at least I thought we did. David handled the finances. He insisted on it, actually. You work hard enough, he'd say, kissing my forehead. Let me take care of the money side of things. It's what I'm good at. And I let him. God, I let him. Our evenings followed a peaceful pattern. He'd come home around 7, sometimes 8. We'd have dinner together, pasta, roasted chicken, whatever I'd prepared. He'd tell me about his day in vague terms, and I'd share library stories. Mrs. Henderson finally returned that book she'd kept for 3 months. A teenager asked for help finding poetry about heartbreak. Small, warm moments that filled our home like soft lamplight. Sometimes he traveled for work. Chicago, Boston. Once, he said he had to go to Denver for a week-long conference. I'll miss you, he'd say, holding me close before he left, his cologne lingering in the hallway long after the door closed. He'd text me every night, just a few words. Meeting ran late. Love you, sweet dreams. I never questioned it. Why would I? He was my husband, my partner, the man I'd chosen and who'd chosen me. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way he'd turn his phone face down on the table. How he'd suddenly started password protecting his laptop. Work security policy, he explained. The business trips that seemed to increase over the past 3 years, from once every few months to twice a month. The way he'd step outside to take certain calls, his voice dropping to a murmur I couldn't quite hear through the window. There were other things too, small inconsistencies that my mind smoothed over at the time. He'd mentioned being at a client dinner in Chicago, but when I asked him about the restaurant later, he'd hesitate for just a fraction of a second before describing it. Once, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a woman's necklace. When I asked about it, he smiled and said it was for his secretary's retirement gift. She's been with the company 20 years. We all chipped in. I believed him. I believed everything. The trust between us felt absolute. I gave him my passwords, my credit cards, my bank account access. We'd combined our finances years ago. What was mine was his. What was his was mine. That's what marriage meant to us. To me. I thought it meant the same to him. On Thursday evenings, we'd watch old movies together, my head on his shoulder, his arm around me. He'd stroke my hair absent-mindedly, and I'd feel so safe, so completely at home. Those moments felt real. They felt true. How can a lie feel so much like love? It started with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was at work, reshelving books in the mystery section, when my cell phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, is this Rebecca Miller? A woman's voice, tight with some emotion I couldn't identify. Yes, this is she. A long pause, then. This is going to sound insane, but I need to ask you something. Are you married to David Miller? David James Miller? My stomach tightened. Who is this? My name is Christine. Christine Parker. I think we need to talk. In person. I should have hung up. I should have called David immediately. Instead, I heard myself say, "What is this about?" Not over the phone. "Please, can you meet me? There's a coffee shop on 5th and Main Rosie's Cafe. Tomorrow at noon?" Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that I should refuse, that I should protect my marriage from whatever poison this stranger wanted to inject into it. But a different instinct, one I didn't recognize, whispered, "Listen, I'll be there," I said. That night, I tried to act normal. David came home at his usual time, kissed me hello, asked about my day. I told him about a book club meeting we were planning at the library, my voice steady even as my hands trembled slightly while I chopped vegetables for dinner. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and he was just that good at pretending. "You seem quiet tonight," he said over chicken stir-fry. "Just tired," I managed. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You work too hard, you know that? Maybe you should take a day off this week." I looked at his face, the face I'd woken up next to for 15 years, and searched for something. Some sign of deception, some crack in the mask. I found nothing but concern and affection. The same David I'd always known. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to him in the dark, listening to his steady breathing, and felt the first whisper of fear. What if this Christine person knew something? What if everything I believed was about to change? At some point in the early hours, I got up and went to his laptop. It sat on the kitchen counter, closed. Innocent. I opened it. The login screen appeared, asking for a password. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. I tried his birthday. Wrong. I tried my birthday. Wrong. My hands were shaking. I'd never been locked out before. He'd always shared his password with me, at least. He had years ago. When had that changed? I closed the laptop carefully and went back to bed. David stirred, reached for me in his sleep, pulled me close. His warmth felt like a lie. The next day, I left work early, telling my supervisor I had a doctor's appointment. Rosie's Cafe was a small place I'd never been to, tucked between a dry cleaner and a bookstore on the east side of town. I arrived 10 minutes early and ordered tea I didn't drink, my hands wrapped around the cup for something to hold on to. Christine arrived exactly at noon. I knew it was her immediately. She had that same tight, desperate look I'd heard in her voice. She was younger than me, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and no makeup. She looked exhausted. She sat down across from me without ordering anything. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I almost didn't call. I've been debating it for weeks. Please just tell me what this is about." She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking worse than mine. She scrolled through photos and then turned the screen toward me. It was David, my David, standing in what looked like a different living room, his arm around Christine's shoulders. In the next photo, they were at a restaurant, leaning close together. In the next, he was kissing her cheek. "How long have you known him?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from very far away. 3 years. We've been together 3 years. She swallowed hard. He told me he was divorced. He said his ex-wife lived in California, and they didn't speak. He said he traveled for work, that he was building a consulting business from the ground up. He was so convincing. The cafe tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. "What made you call me?" "I saw your Facebook profile. He'd left his laptop open at my place last week. He never does that. He's always so careful. And a notification popped up. A message from you. 'Love you, see you tonight.' I clicked on your name and saw your profile. Saw your wedding photos. Photos from last month, last year. You're not his ex-wife. You're his current wife." She started crying, quietly, tears rolling down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't move. Everything felt frozen. Does he live with you? Part of the time. He stays at my apartment 3 or 4 days a week. He says the other days he's traveling for client meetings or staying at corporate housing near the office. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He had keys to my place. He kept clothes there. We talked about moving in together, about getting married. My tea had gone cold. I stared at it, watching my reflection ripple on the surface. There's more, Christine said quietly. I don't know how to tell you this, but you need to know. Last month he asked me for money, said he had a big investment opportunity, something that could set us up for life. He needed $50,000. I gave it to him. I took out a loan against my retirement account. The floor dropped out from under me. He did the same to you, didn't he? Ma, she whispered, reading my face. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I left the cafe in a daze. Christine gave me her number, said to call if I needed to talk, if I needed anything. I don't remember driving home. I just remember standing in my driveway, looking at our house with the blue shutters, and realizing I didn't know what was real anymore. David wasn't due home for another 3 hours. I went inside and started searching. I'd never snooped before, never felt the need. Now I tore through his dresser drawers, his closet, his desk. I found nothing. He was too careful. But then I remembered the filing cabinet in the basement, the one he said held old tax documents and business files. Boring stuff, he'd always said. Don't worry about it. It was locked. I found a screwdriver and forced it open, my hands steady now with purpose. Inside were folders, so many folders. Bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed. Credit card bills in his name only, with charges from restaurants in cities he'd never mentioned visiting, hotels he'd never told me about. Receipts for jewelry, for flowers, for expensive dinners. And then I found the worst of it. Withdrawal slips, transfers. Our joint savings account, the one we'd been building for 15 years, the one that was supposed to have nearly $200,000 for our retirement, had a balance of $800. I sat on the basement floor, papers scattered around me, and tried to understand. He'd been draining it slowly, systematically, over the past 3 years. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Small enough that I never checked, never noticed. Why would I? I trusted him. The house phone rang upstairs. I didn't answer it. It rang again an hour later. Then my cell phone. David's name on the screen. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. He came home at 7, just like always. I heard his key in the lock, heard him call out, "Honey, I'm home!" I walked up from the basement, still holding a bank statement. He was in the kitchen, loosening his tie, reaching for a glass. He turned and saw my face, saw the paper in my hand. For just a moment less than a second, his mask slipped. I saw fear, calculation. Then it was gone, replaced by concern. Becca? What's wrong? Are you okay? Where's our money, David? What are you talking about? I held up the statement. Our savings? $200,000. Where is it? He froze. I watched him decide how to play this, watched him weighing lies against lies. I can explain, he started. Don't. Just don't. My voice was shaking now. I met Christine today. She told me everything, and I found these. I gestured to the papers I'd brought upstairs. So please, for once in our marriage, tell me the truth. Who are you? He sat down at the kitchen table, his face in his hands. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, it started as a stupid mistake. I met her at a conference 3 years ago. It was supposed to be one night, just one night. But then, it kept happening. She didn't know about you. I kept meaning to end it, but I couldn't. I didn't want to hurt either of you. So you decided to lie to us both instead. How noble. The money? Tell me about the money, David. He looked up. His eyes were red, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no compassion. I made some bad investments. Really bad. I thought I could recover the losses before you noticed. I took out loans, used our savings, thought I could make it back. It just kept getting worse. The debt kept growing. I borrowed from Christine too. I was trying to fix it. You weren't trying to fix anything. You were running. How much do we owe? Including the mortgages and credit cards, about $350,000. The number didn't feel real. It was too big, too impossible. Mortgages? Plural? He looked away. I took out a second mortgage on the house last year, and I have another property. A condo where Christine lives. I'm on that mortgage too. I sat down across from him, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. 15 years. 15 years of my life, and I'd been married to a stranger. I need you to leave, I said quietly. Becca, please. Leave, now. Take whatever you can carry and get out of my house. This is my house, too. Your house? I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't sound like me. You mortgaged it without telling me. You stole from me. You lied about every single day of the past 3 years. You don't get to claim this house. You don't get to claim anything. He stood up, and for a moment I thought he might argue. Instead, he just nodded. 15 minutes later, I heard his car pull out of the driveway. I sat in the dark kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal, and finally let myself cry. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, bank calls, and sleepless nights. I'd naively thought that once David left, the worst would be over. I was wrong. The worst was just beginning. The bank called first. The second mortgage, the one I knew nothing about, was 3 months overdue. They were starting foreclosure proceedings. I had 30 days to bring the payments current or lose the house. But I didn't sign for this loan, I told the bank representative, my voice rising with panic. Mrs. Miller, your signature is on file. It's not my signature. It can't be. They sent me a copy. The signature looked exactly like mine. He'd forged it. My husband had forged my signature and leveraged our home, and I had no idea. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, whom I'd found through a recommendation at the library, looked at the documents with a grim expression. This is fraud, she said. Clear fraud. But proving it and getting restitution are two different things. Where's your husband now? I don't know. His phone is disconnected. He's not at work. I called, and they said he'd resigned 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Before I even knew. He was preparing to run, Patricia said. The question is whether he already has. I found out the answer 3 days later when I tried to access our joint checking account to pay the electric bill. The account was closed. He'd withdrawn every penny, the last $800, and closed it before he left that night. My mother came to stay with me. She arrived with groceries and practical sympathy, the kind that comes with coffee and cleaning supplies rather than platitudes. That bastard, she said, unpacking food into my refrigerator. 35 years I've been married to your father, and I've seen a lot of bad behavior. But this, Rebecca, honey, this is beyond anything. I don't understand how I didn't see it, Mom. How could I be so blind? She stopped what she was doing and pulled me into a hug. Because you loved him. Because you trusted him. That's not a failing, sweetheart. That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. But it felt like a failing. Every night, I replayed our life together, looking for clues I'd missed. The signs had been there. I could see them now with brutal clarity. The way he'd discouraged me from checking our bank accounts. I've got it handled, don't worry. The way he'd gradually taken over all our finances, insisting it was easier if one person managed everything. The way he'd convinced me to put his name on the deed to the house I'd inherited from my grandmother, for estate planning purposes. I'd trusted him with everything, and he'd stolen it all. Christine called me a week after our meeting. Her voice was small, defeated. He's gone, she said. Disappeared. His landlord at the place I thought was corporate housing said he cleared out the apartment. He owes 3 months' rent there, too. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. For everything. It's not your fault. We were both his victims. I keep thinking about all the times he said he loved me. Was any of it real? I didn't have an answer for that. I was asking myself the same question. My friends from the library rallied around me. Sarah organized a meal train. Tom helped me sort through the financial documents Patricia needed. Margaret sat with me on the hard days when I couldn't stop crying, when the weight of it all felt too heavy to carry. But there were other people too. People who whispered. People who asked why I hadn't known, as if I'd been complicit somehow. David's mother called and accused me of driving him away with my demands and suspicions. His brother suggested I was exaggerating, that there must be a reasonable explanation. $350,000 in debt isn't a misunderstanding, I told him before hanging up. The creditors were relentless. Phone calls every day. Letters piled up on the kitchen counter. The credit card companies wanted their money. The mortgage company wanted their money. Everyone wanted money I didn't have. I met with Patricia again and laid out everything. The forged signatures, the secret accounts, the other woman, the missing money. What are my options? I asked. You need to file for divorce immediately, and you need to report the fraud to the police. File a report, get it on record. It might not get your money back, but it will establish that you were a victim of identity theft and forgery. Will I lose the house? She was quiet for a moment. Probably. Unless you can come up with $40,000 to make up the missed payments and catch up on the second mortgage. Do you have any assets? I have a 15-year-old Honda and about $2,000 in an account he didn't know about. That's it. Everything else was joint. Then yes, you'll likely lose the house. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I filed for divorce the next day. I filed a police report. I called every credit card company and bank and explained that I was a victim of fraud. Some believed me, some didn't. It didn't matter. The debt was in my name too. Legally, I was responsible. I hit bottom on a Thursday night in November. The foreclosure notice had arrived that morning. I had 60 days to vacate the house, my grandmother's house, the house where I'd grown up, the house that was supposed to be my safe place. I sat in the empty living room. I'd already started selling furniture to pay bills and looked around at the peeling wallpaper I'd been meaning to replace, the scuffed hardwood floors, the window that stuck when you tried to open it. This imperfect, beautiful place that had been home. David had taken everything, not just the money, but my sense of safety, my ability to trust, my faith in my own judgment. How could I trust myself to make any decision when I'd been so catastrophically wrong about the most important person in my life? I called Christine. I don't know why. Maybe because she was the only person who truly understood. I'm losing the house, I told her. I'm losing my apartment too, she said quietly. The loan I took out for him. I can't make the payments. I'm moving back in with my parents next month. We sat in silence on the phone for a long moment, two women connected by the same betrayal. Do you hate me? She asked suddenly. No, I don't hate you. I don't even hate him, really. I just feel empty. Yeah, empty is the right word. After we hung up, I sat in the dark and let myself imagine it, giving up, walking away from all of it. The debt, the shame, the endless legal battles. What would happen if I just stopped fighting? But even as I thought it, I knew I wouldn't. Couldn't. Because underneath the emptiness, underneath the grief and the rage and the humiliation, there was something else. Something small but stubborn. Anger. Pure, clean anger. How dare he? How dare he take 15 years of my life and treat them like they were nothing? How dare he steal not just my money, but my peace, my home, my ability to feel safe in the world? How dare he make me doubt myself, make me feel foolish for having loved him? I stood up in that dark room and said it out loud. Fuck you, David. It felt good, so I said it again, louder. Fuck you. I wasn't going to let him win. He'd taken my money, my house, my sense of security. But he hadn't taken everything. I was still here. I was still standing. And I was going to survive this. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. David never showed up to any of the hearings. The judge granted the divorce in absentia and issued a warrant for his arrest for fraud and identity theft. Not that it mattered, no one could find him. He'd vanished completely, probably to another state, another city, another set of lies. I lost the house. That hurt more than I expected. I packed up 15 years of memories into boxes and moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the south side of town. It was clean and cheap and nothing like home, but it was mine. Only mine. No one could take it from me. The library gave me more hours. I picked up a second job doing freelance bookkeeping, ironic, considering I'd let my husband destroy my finances. But it turned out I was good with numbers. Better than I'd thought. Better than he'd ever been, apparently, since his investments had been nothing but gambling and theft. I declared bankruptcy. Patricia had advised against it at first, but when it became clear that David wasn't coming back and I was stuck with hundreds of thousands in debt I'd never agreed to, it was the only option. The bankruptcy court was sympathetic. The judge actually called David's actions egregious, but sympathy didn't erase the 7 years of destroyed credit I was facing. Some days were harder than others. I'd see a couple holding hands in the grocery store and feel a sharp physical pain in my chest. I'd hear a jazz song and remember David humming in the shower, and I'd have to sit down wherever I was and breathe through the wave of grief. But there were good days, too. Days when I realized I'd gone a whole afternoon without thinking about him. Days when I balanced my modest budget and felt a fierce pride at making it work. Days when I could sleep through the night without nightmares of drowning in debt. I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Morgan, and she had kind eyes and didn't let me wallow in self-pity. "You're not stupid for having trusted him," she said during one session. "You're human. What he did was calculated, sophisticated fraud. He had years to perfect his lies." "But I should have seen it." "Why? Because you've been trained to detect sociopathic behavior? Because you have a degree in spotting financial fraud? You were his wife, not his probation officer. You were supposed to be able to trust him." It helped hearing that. Slowly, painfully, I started to forgive myself. A year after David left, I got an unexpected call from Patricia. "They found him," she said. "He was arrested in Arizona under a fake name. He'd been running the same con on 2 other women out there. He's being extradited back here to face fraud charges." I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt nothing. He didn't matter anymore. Will I get any of the money back? Unlikely. He's got nothing left. But at least he'll face justice. Justice. What a strange word for it. Prison wouldn't give me back the years I'd lost, the trust that had been shattered, the version of myself who could love without fear. But it was something. I went to one court hearing, the day he was sentenced. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched him shuffle in, wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed. He looked smaller than I remembered. Ordinary. How had this ordinary man caused so much destruction? He saw me. Our eyes met for just a moment. I couldn't read his expression. Regret? Defiance? Emptiness? It didn't matter. I stood up and walked out before the hearing started. I didn't need to watch. Didn't need closure from him. I'd already found it in myself. 2 years after David left, I stood in my small apartment and looked at the life I'd built from the wreckage. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It was smaller, quieter, more cautious. But it was mine, and it was real. I'd been promoted to head librarian, a position I'd never imagined wanting. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and I loved the work. I'd made new friends, real friends, who knew my whole story and liked me anyway. Christine and I met for coffee occasionally. We'd never be close. There was too much pain between us, but we had an understanding. We'd both been fooled by the same man, and we'd both survived. That created a bond, strange as it was. I dated occasionally, though not seriously. The idea of trusting someone with my heart again terrified me. Maybe someday, or maybe not. I was learning to be okay with either possibility. My credit was slowly recovering. I had a savings account with $12,000 in it, money I'd earned entirely myself, money that no one else had access to. Some nights, I'd log into my banking app just to look at the balance, to remind myself that I could do this. I could take care of myself. The nightmares had mostly stopped. I still had moments of panic, a song on the radio, a man's cologne in the elevator, a certain laugh. But they passed more quickly now. Dr. Morgan said I had PTSD from the betrayal, that it was normal and would continue to heal. I changed my last name back to my maiden name. Harrison. Rebecca Harrison. It felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that I'd given away. My mother asked me once if I regretted marrying David. 15 years is a long time, she said. Do you wish you could have them back? I thought about it for a long time before answering. No, I finally said. I wish he'd been the person I thought he was. I wish the marriage had been real. But those 15 years, even if they were built on lies, made me who I am. They taught me what I'm capable of surviving. I wouldn't trade that knowledge, even if I could. She hugged me tight. You're stronger than I ever was, she whispered. I'm strong because I had to be. There wasn't any other choice. On the 3rd anniversary of the day, I'd met Christine at the cafe. The day my old life ended. I did something symbolic. I took the last box of David's things items I'd been unable to throw away or sell, tucked in the back of my closet, and I sorted through them one final time. His college t-shirt, a watch I'd given him for our 10th anniversary, photos from our wedding, both of us young and smiling, believing in forever. A birthday card he'd given me the year before he left. To my beautiful wife, you make every day brighter. All my love, always. Had he meant any of it? Would I ever know? I kept one photo, the two of us on our honeymoon, standing on a beach in Mexico, the sun setting behind us. Not because I missed him or missed us, but because I wanted to remember that woman. She'd been naive, yes, trusting to a fault, but she'd been brave too, brave enough to love completely. The rest I boxed up and donated to Goodwill. Let someone else find use in these things. They held no power over me anymore. I walked through the city that evening, past restaurants and shops, past couples walking hand in hand, past the street where David and I used to live. The blue shutters had been repainted by the new owners. The garden I'd tended was overgrown. I felt a pang, but not of longing, of recognition. That had been one chapter of my life. This was another. I stopped for dinner at a small Italian place I'd never tried. I ordered wine and pasta and sat by the window, watching people pass by. A few years ago, eating alone would have felt like failure, like proof of how far I'd fallen. Now it just felt like peace. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah at the library. Book club tomorrow night, your place? I'll bring wine. Ngee, I smiled and typed back. Perfect. I had friends. I had work I loved. I had a small apartment that was all mine, a savings account that grew slowly but steadily, a future that was uncertain but possible. I had survived the worst betrayal I could imagine, and I was still here. David had stolen my money, my home, my sense of security. He'd stolen years of my life that I'd given him freely, thinking they were building something real. But he hadn't stolen everything. He hadn't stolen my ability to start again. He hadn't stolen my resilience, my capacity for joy, my fundamental sense of self-worth. He'd tried. God knows he'd tried. But those things weren't his to take. I paid for my dinner and walked home through the cooling evening air. The apartment was small when I walked in, but it was warm. The furniture was secondhand, but it was comfortable. The life I'd built was modest, but it was honest. I made tea and sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow I'd go to work. I'd help people find books, answer questions, maybe recommend a title to someone who needed an escape. Tomorrow night, I'd host book club and laugh with friends who knew the worst of my story and still wanted to be in my life. Tomorrow and the next day, and the day after that, I'd keep building, keep healing, keep learning to trust again, not blindly, not naively, but carefully, with both my heart and my eyes open. I'd been destroyed, and I'd survived the destruction. I'd been betrayed, and I'd learned to believe in myself again. David had taken everything he could carry, but the most important things, my strength, my dignity, my belief in my own worth, had been mine all along, and those he could never touch. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still capable of joy, of trust, of hope. He took my money. He took my home. He took 15 years of my life. But he couldn't take me. And in the end, that's the only victory that matters. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to us becomes the catalyst for discovering who we truly are. I lost everything I thought defined me, and in the emptiness, I found something stronger: myself. The money will be earned again. The trust will be rebuilt, carefully and slowly. The life I thought I had is gone, but the life I'm building now is entirely my own. And that, I've learned, is worth more than all the stolen money in the world.